Today I'm going to unbox and set up the Elegoo Saturn Resin 3D printer. It is very similar to my frozen Sonic Mighty 4K printer, but more affordable, especially if you're going to be replacing the LCD screen later. But I will compare that at the end. First, let's get this thing out of the box and set up. It comes with the toolkit, which comes with mask, gloves, scraper, manual, hardware, power cord, all the things that you'll need to get your printer up and running. Pull this out of the box, take off all of the protective materials. The main bag is bunched up underneath with a zip tie, so you just have to take that off before you can get the rest of it out, and remove the remaining packing materials. The Saturn does have a network port, though I likely will not use it. It is available. The build plate is very rough. I will likely end up having to sand it later. They want to make sure that your resin sticks, which it does, but usually a little bit too well for my liking. The Elegoo does have an aluminum vat that is held in with 2 screws. It's a little bit concerning that the screws go directly into the metal of the machine. And I'll talk about that later as I run into issues with that. It does have a protective film on the back as well. There is a protective film on the screen, but they also want to make absolutely sure that you don't remove the tape holding the screen in place with that little warning sticker. There are also divots for the vat to go into, and the holes go directly into the base, not really a replaceable part. I don't need that sticker. I know not to rip the tape off unless I'm replacing the screen, so I take that off as well. And lots of cellophane. It's unpacked and ready to be plugged in and turned on so that we can go ahead and level the build platform. There are 2 set screws that release it. It also has a spring so that it can go up and down, but once you get those both loose, it will move in any direction, more than you need it to, but that's okay. It's nice and loose so that you can adjust it how you would like it to be. But first we need to raise up the bed so that we can put that build platform on it without hitting the screen. With the build plate in place, we take the leveling paper, which is more like cardboard, it's pretty thick, and put it in between the screen and the platform, and then we will home it to put it down on the paper. And where it does go in every direction, we want to make sure that once it's stopped that we square it up with the LCD panel before holding it in place and tightening our set screws. The leveling paper should be held firm on all sides and not slide out, and then we can go ahead and raise it up, and it is all set, ready to print. Make sure we do an LCD test to make sure the LCD screen is working. Take off the protective film of our vat, go ahead and put it in place, and then we can go ahead and start printing. I'm going to print the test rook that they provided, but I did reslice it because I'm going to be using a mixture of resin. I like to do a mixture of the Soraya Tech Fast mixed with the Tenacious so that it has a little bit of flexibility. Not that it matters for this test, but that's what I already have, so that's what I sliced it to use. And here it goes, so we'll speed that up, and then we'll skip to it being done. Ta-da! A test rook. Just as expected. And it looks great, as it would on a 4K printer for this type of model. But let's get it off and cleaned up. And it is a little bit hard to come off, just as I predicted. The build plate is so rough that it takes a little bit of extra force, more of a chiseling than an actual scraping underneath of it, so I will sand that later. I wipe off the excess resin, clean it off with some alcohol, and then put it in the cure box to cure for about 20 minutes, at which point it's nice and ready to see how it came out. Look at all that detail. So great. You know what else is great? All those who support this channel. Thank you so much for your donations and support. It is greatly appreciated. I would not do these videos without it. So if you would also like to support this channel, feel free to throw a couple dollars my way and help keep this channel alive. Back to the Saturn. Let's compare it to the Frozen Sonic Mighty. It is a little bit taller and skinnier, and it looks like the build plate doesn't go quite as high, so maybe it's not as high of a build volume. The build plate itself is very similar in size. It is maybe a few millimeters shorter on the long side is all. Now for my issue. See how on the Frozen the screws are a thumb cap on top? Well, with the Saturn, where you're screwing directly into the metal of the base, I got it slightly cross-threaded, and it was very difficult to get it out, and I was worried that I ruined it. And if you do that, what are you going to do? You can't get your vat to stay in place without basically replacing the entire printer because the threads are directly into the metal of the base. On the Frozen, the screw actually doesn't have threading on the end, and then it comes up out of the base and you put a cap on the top. That could work for this if they would just maybe make the end of the screw not be threaded so that it was more likely to go directly straight into the threads. But as it is very easy to skew, and I had to very carefully use my tap and die set to redo the threads inside the machine as well as the tip of my screw. And I really wasn't sure that this would work, but it actually did end up working. And if you ever have to do this, it is a 4mm thread, just so you know. Hopefully you never have to do that. Be very careful when you're putting your vat in and your screws. If it doesn't go in very smoothly, just make sure that you shimmy your vat around a little bit until it goes in straight. I may even sand the tip of mine off later just for that purpose. Other than that, this is a great machine, and I would actually recommend it over the Frozen just because of the pricing and for the parts if you have to replace them later. I hope this video has been helpful to you. If you liked it, make sure to hit that thumbs up and subscribe for future videos. Until then, I will see you next time.